I'm 29 years old and I live in a peaceful town in Oregon, where spring streets are always filled with the scent of lavender and cinnamon rolls from the little corner bakery. 3 weeks ago, I gave birth to my first child, a handsome baby boy named Elijah. The moment I heard his cry in the delivery room, it felt like the world stopped. But my dream of becoming a mother wasn't as sweet as I had imagined, because from the moment I got pregnant, the person who should have been the happiest, my mother, was the first to make me cry. My mother's name is Margaret, a woman who once had sharp eyes and a smile that commanded respect. But to me, she was never a source of comfort. Even as a child, I knew where I stood with her, always in the shadow of my younger sister Emily, who's now 24. Emily was the kind of daughter my mother praised: beautiful, always smiling at the right moments, speaking sweetly, and most importantly, always making my mother proud. I, on the other hand, was the stubborn daughter who studied social work instead of business like she wanted, and got married before having a stable career, as she warned. Emily got engaged earlier this year, and the wedding was set for December. By then, I would have just given birth to Elijah. This, according to my mother, was a PR disaster for the family. I remember that summer afternoon vividly when she came to my house carrying a bag of cookies I used to love as a kid, her face glowing like she was about to share some happy news. But her joy faded when she looked down at my belly and frowned slightly. "Lauren, we need to have a serious talk," she said, setting her teacup down, her voice colder than her initial smile. "You know Emily's planning her wedding. You having a baby right before it is really inappropriate." I almost choked. "What do you mean, Mom?" I mean, she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with calculation. "People will only pay attention to you and the baby. What about Emily? She only gets one wedding day. Could you delay announcing the birth? Keep things quiet, at least until after the wedding?" I stayed silent for a few seconds, unable to believe what I was hearing. "You want me to hide my son? Like he's something to be ashamed of?" She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me as if trying to teach me a lesson I was too foolish to understand. "It's not about you," she finally said. "It's about the family. About Emily." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Mom, Emily and I have never been close. You know that. She didn't even send me a wedding invite. Why should I sacrifice my first moments as a mother so she can have a perfect wedding?" Margaret stood up, grabbed the bag of cookies, and left her untouched tea on the table. "I only want what's best for both of you. If you can't understand that, I have nothing more to say." The door closed behind her, but inside me, something opened. I had never seen it so clearly. My mother had never truly been on my side. To her, I was always just the shadow of the perfect daughter Emily represented. 3 weeks later, when Elijah was born, my mother wasn't at the hospital. Instead, she posted a photo of herself helping Emily try on wedding dresses, captioned, "A precious moment for a proud mother." And me? I cradled Elijah in my arms and whispered, "I don't need her here. My son is here, and from now on, I'll be the mother he deserves." Since that day, I haven't heard a single call or message from my mother. No check-ins, no sign that she even cared about her new grandson. My house became strangely quiet, but healthier. James, my husband, stood by me, gently reassuring me. "Family isn't always right, but you are doing right." I gave birth to Elijah on an early autumn afternoon when the leaves outside the hospital window were turning golden and orange. My heart exploded with happiness when I heard his first cry. James held my hand, too overwhelmed to speak, yet the woman who had given birth to me wasn't there. James told me later, when I was lying in bed holding Elijah, exhausted but in awe. I called her Lauren. She said she was busy taking Emily to a cake tasting. Then she hung up. I said nothing. I just turned my head to look at Elijah, sleeping peacefully against my chest. The sweet scent of his tiny head, the warmth of his little body, all of it made me realize I couldn't keep forcing myself to live up to a mother I never really had. 3 days after we brought Elijah home, a handwritten letter was slipped under the door. It was from my mother. No apology. Not a single line asking how the delivery went or how her grandson was doing. Just one cold statement. Do not bring Elijah to the wedding. And preferably, don't let anyone in the family know you gave birth. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but James, he was furious. He crushed the letter in his fist and threw it in the trash. I know you promised your dad you'd always look after her, he said, but when are you going to stop letting her chain you down with family guilt? I stayed silent. In my mind, I didn't hear my mother's words. I heard my father's weak voice from years ago, holding my hand from his hospital bed. Margaret's complicated, but I believe you'll be the one to keep this family together. And I had. Until I realized, you can't hold together something that was never truly whole. A week later, I got a text from my aunt, my mother's older sister, who rarely got involved. Lauren, your mom said you don't want to keep Elijah and are thinking about giving him up. Is that true? I froze. I had never said that. Never even thought about it. I immediately called back, my voice shaking. Where did you hear that? Margaret told me. She said you're overwhelmed, inexperienced, and looking for other options. She said she would take care of it. I felt my heart sink. A prickly, sharp fear crept into my thoughts. I knew my mother could be selfish. But to lie about me wanting to abandon my child? For what? James listened to the whole call, and for the first time since Elijah was born, he couldn't stay calm. What do you think she's planning? Lauren, we need to confront this, now. I nodded, gripping the phone tightly, trying to stay composed. In my mind, a terrifying thought surfaced for the first time. Maybe my mother was plotting something behind my back. And this time, it wasn't just about hurt feelings. It was about Elijah, the child I had carried and brought into this world, being put at risk. I never imagined the day would come when I'd have to protect my son from his own grandmother. But my mother's instincts whispered, if that's the case, I won't back down. I was nursing Elijah when the phone rang. It was my mother's number. After everything, I didn't want to pick up, but the ringing kept going, insistent like a warning bell. I muted it, flipping the phone face down on the table. But minutes later, texts flooded in. Lauren, pick up. It's urgent. It's about Elijah. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. James walked into the room, immediately noticing my expression. What's wrong? I handed him the phone. He read the texts, his brow furrowing. Do you want me to call back? I nodded. I didn't know what I was expecting. An apology? An explanation? But nothing could have prepared me for what she was about to say. James. Her voice was shaky, breathless. I have something to confess, but Lauren needs to hear it. He looked at me, silently asking if I was sure. I took a deep breath and grabbed the phone. This is Lauren. Lauren? She sighed like a weight had lifted from her chest. You need to hear this before someone else calls you. They might call you. From the adoption agency. I froze. What? It's my fault. I went to a private agency. I lied and said you and James weren't capable of raising Elijah, that you both had a history of substance use. I forged your signature, I faked the paperwork, but they found out. They said they're reporting it to the authorities. I collapsed into the chair, my hands clutching Elijah's blanket, as if trying to hold on to reality. Her words cut into me like knives. Forgery. Lies. Taking my son to an adoption agency? You were going to give my child away? I barely recognized my own voice. It was so hollow it scared me. That's not it, my mother hurriedly said. I thought it would be better for you and for Emily. I didn't want you overshadowing her wedding. I couldn't listen anymore. I hung up. No tears, no screams. I just silently cradled my son. A few hours later, we got an official call from the adoption agency. A legal representative named Denise explained that the adoption process had been immediately suspended after they discovered serious document fraud, including forged medical records and false claims about the parent's situation. "Mrs. Lauren," Denise said gently, "we sincerely apologize for any harm this situation may have caused your family, and I must also inform you, we have reported this incident to the authorities." James squeezed my hand. I saw him trying hard to hold it together, but I knew holding it in only made it hurt more. We once thought my mother was just biased, but now she had crossed a line no relationship could recover from. That night, I wrote a full statement detailing everything. We scheduled a meeting with a lawyer for the next day. I had no choice. Elijah couldn't grow up in a world where his own grandmother had tried to strip him away from his parents. When I signed my name at the bottom of the page, I didn't feel relief. I felt empty. But I knew it had to be done. And if my mother thought she could hide behind doing it for the family to excuse her actions, this time, she was wrong. I was no longer the daughter trying to please her. I was a mother now, and I would protect Elijah, even if it meant standing against the woman who gave birth to me. The next morning, before the sun rose over the distant hills, James and I sat across from the family lawyer, Mr. Howard Greer, a salt and pepper-faced man, quiet but razor-sharp. After hearing the whole story, he took off his glasses, looking at us seriously. "Lauren, James, I need to be clear," he said. "Your mother's actions aren't just family mistakes. What she did constitutes legal document forgery and violation of parental rights. This is a criminal matter." I straightened my back, though my heart still felt heavy. James squeezed my hand under the table. We both knew we were ready for this. "I want to file a civil lawsuit," I said without hesitation. "Beyond the adoption fraud, I have been financially supporting her for the past 2 years, from rent to medical bills, utilities, totaling over $18,000. I want it all repaid," James added, his voice low but steady. "And we're also willing to cooperate with the prosecutor on the criminal charges. We won't interfere if the authorities pursue it." Howard nodded. "I'll represent you. But I need to say this up front. This won't be an easy battle. She's your mother, and when word gets out, there will be public backlash." I pressed my lips together. I've lived with that kind of judgment my entire life, trying to honor a promise I made to my father. But now I'm a mother. I won't let my child grow up in a family where love is used as a weapon for manipulation and lies. We filed the lawsuit before noon. At the same time, the county police officially announced the criminal charges against Margaret Winters, my mother, for official document forgery, misrepresentation to facilitate illegal adoption, and violation of legal parental custody. I heard the news in a strange calm. No triumph, no pain, just a long silence, as if I had walked through a door I could never return through. A few days later, Margaret was placed under house supervision, awaiting investigation. But what surprised me were the handwritten letters that started appearing at her door. Not sent through the mail, but clearly delivered by someone she sent. In each letter, she rambled, saying she was panicking, that she only thought about Emily and her future, and that I was too sensitive and making everything worse. The last letter she sent, I still remember every word. "You promised your father you'd take care of me. Is this how you do it?" I folded the letter and put it in a box. I didn't burn it, I didn't tear it. But I didn't answer it either. James and I decided to hand over part of our lawsuit documentation to the prosecutor's office. We agreed to testify if the case went to trial. After verifying all the details, the prosecutor's lawyer told us if there was no out-of-court settlement, my mother could face up to 5 years of probation, heavy fines, and mandatory participation in a community rehabilitation program. When I told my Aunt Julie, my mother's sister. Over the phone, she let out a long sigh. Lauren, I know things have gone too far. But are you really going to push your own mother to this? I didn't know what to say. But James, standing beside me, calmly spoke into the speakerphone. No one pushed her. She crossed that line herself long ago. I thought I would feel guilty, but I only felt free. And for the first time in my life, I understood something my father had never taught me. Sometimes, protecting your family means cutting ties with the ones who threaten it. Since Margaret's house arrest, I started getting emails from an unknown address, but I knew exactly who it was from. The first subject line read, "I'm sorry." I didn't open it immediately, but every day brought a new message. "I can't sleep. Just forgive me. You promised your father." The fourth email was where she finally mentioned my dad. "Lauren, your father once told me that if anyone could hold this family together, it was you. You're the only one strong and kind enough to forgive. I'm begging you, don't let this go to court." I sat frozen for a long time after reading that. It was like someone had pressed hard on an old scar I thought had healed. For years, I had bent over backward to live up to a dying man's wish. I endured unfairness, swallowed my tears, bore favoritism, all because he once believed in me. But now, that belief was being used as a shield, not to protect me, but to excuse her, to erase her wrongs. Printed out the email, folded it neatly, and placed it into the lawsuit file. It wasn't evidence, but it was reason enough. Reason why I would not back down. A few days later, Emily showed up. No warning, no courtesy. She appeared at our front door, clutching a piece of paper, her face tight with anger. I was holding Elijah, so James answered the door, but Emily's voice was loud enough for me to hear every word from the living room. "Have you done enough yet?" she almost shouted. "All this because you want to be the star, to overshadow me, and now what? I have to cut more than half my wedding budget because Mom has no money. Are you happy now?" James remained calm. "You should leave, Emily. We have no time for blame games." But Emily didn't stop. She pulled out a bill from her purse and waved it at James. "Mom already put down deposits. I picked a dress, a venue, printed invitations, and now, thanks to you, she's broke and facing jail. Do you even have a heart?" I stepped forward, Elijah in my arms, standing next to James. "A heart," I said, meeting her gaze. "Thank you for asking. It's because I have a heart that I couldn't ignore Mom lying, forging documents to steal my child. If I hadn't caught it, Elijah wouldn't even be here. This isn't about a wedding dress, Emily. This is about a human being. About my child." Emily fell silent for a few seconds, then let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "You're such a drama queen. All you ever wanted was to humiliate Mom. You're playing the victim while she's left to rot." "No," I replied, my voice soft but firm. "She put herself there. I'm just letting her face the consequences." Without another word, I turned back inside. James closed the door. We heard Emily pound on it a few more times before walking away. This time, I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I just looked at Elijah, sleeping peacefully in my arms, and kissed his forehead. That afternoon, I received news from our lawyer. The lawsuit had been officially accepted by the court. The first hearing was scheduled for about a month from now. The prosecution also issued subpoenas for James and me to testify in the criminal case. As I was reviewing documents, my phone buzzed with another email. Margaret, again. "Lauren, I know you're angry. But remember, you once said, 'I will never abandon you.' You're not the cold-hearted type." I set the phone down without replying. I used to be the daughter who always came back after being hurt. But now, I am a mother. The first mediation session happened on a Wednesday morning, in a small conference room inside the county courthouse. James sat beside me, and my mother, Margaret, sat across from us with her lawyer. From the moment she entered, she avoided my eyes, but I could see her hands trembling, her eyes red, her lips pressed tightly as if holding back an outburst. My lawyer began with a professional tone, proposing a reasonable financial settlement, stressing that we were willing to end the civil lawsuit if she accepted responsibility and agreed not to engage in any further harmful actions. Everything was proceeding formally until Margaret's lawyer spoke up. He hadn't even finished when Margaret burst into tears. She pushed back her chair, pointed at me, her voice sharp and shrill as years of bitterness exploded out. "Lauren, do you even have a heart? I was wrong, I admit it. But why turn me into a criminal? Do you want me in jail? Over what? Because Emily's getting married? Because I loved her more than you?" The room froze in tense silence. I clenched my hands, fighting not to react. But she didn't stop. "I raised you, fed you, cared for you every day, and this is how you repay me? Pushing me into a corner, stealing my money, humiliating me in front of the entire town?" James started to rise, but I stopped him with a hand. I just looked at my mother. Silent. And maybe it was that silence that hurt her the most. The mediation ended after only 17 minutes. The court recorded it as a failure. No settlement was reached. 3 days later, I received a call from my Uncle Raymond, my mother's younger brother, a man I used to respect, but this conversation would change everything. "Lauren," my uncle said, his voice filled with disappointment, "you're taking this too far. No matter what Margaret did, she's still your mother. She's old now. How could she possibly handle her own daughter dragging her into court?" I tried to stay calm. "Uncle Raymond, she didn't just make a mistake. She tried to take custody of Elijah using forged documents. This isn't a family issue anymore. It's a legal matter." "Legal?" my uncle practically shouted. "Where did you learn to be so cold? You're no better than a stranger. If your father were still alive, he would be heartbroken." I replied shortly, "I believe that if my father were still alive, none of this would have happened. And this so-called hurt you talk about? Is it even real? Or just an excuse to punish your mother for loving Emily more?" I hung up. My throat was tight. James came over, said nothing, just gently placed a hand on my shoulder, a silent touch that kept me standing. I thought things had hit rock bottom, until one Saturday night when Emily showed up again. This time, she wasn't alone. She stood in the middle of the yard with 2 of her girlfriends, yelling like she was performing a dramatic play. "Open the door, Lauren! Are you too scared to face me? Because of you, Mom almost got arrested. You stole my wedding money. Do you know how much I had to cut back?" I was trying to rock Elijah to sleep while James had just stepped into the kitchen. He rushed onto the front porch and said firmly, "Emily, leave. This is private property." "Private property?" Emily laughed loudly. "Who do you think paid for this house? Mom's money. Now she's getting sued, and you're taking everything. You're ungrateful." Her screams echoed across the neighborhood. Curtains started shifting as neighbors peeked out. Elijah woke up, crying hysterically. My heart clenched. I didn't hesitate any longer. I called the police. 12 minutes later, 2 officers arrived, ordering Emily and her friends to leave the area. Before getting into the police car, Emily turned back and screamed, "Remember this, Lauren? No one's on your side. No one." I watched as the red and blue lights reflected off the pavement. Elijah was still crying in my arms, but I whispered, "You have me. I'll always be on your side. Even if it's just me." The very next day, I went to the lawyer's office and filed for a restraining order against Emily. Not just for me, but for Elijah, the child who almost got taken away if I hadn't discovered it in time. The final court hearing took place on a freezing March morning, with mist still clinging to the treetops around Marion County Court. I sat silently in the plaintiff's section, James holding my hand. Elijah stayed home with his grandmother. I didn't want him exposed to this dark side of our family. The judge ruled. Margaret Winters, my mother, was found guilty of document forgery and knowingly providing false information to strip lawful parental custody. However, since it was her first offense and she cooperated during the investigation, the court suspended jail time. Instead, she received 2 years of probation, a $25,000 0-cents fine, 100 hours of community service, and mandatory supervised psychological treatment for 12 months. I didn't feel triumphant. There are no winners in a broken family. But as I left the courthouse, I felt lighter, as if the last door to my past had finally closed. 3 weeks later, my civil lawsuit concluded too. My lawyer, Mr. Greer, informed us that the court approved my financial restitution request. Margaret was ordered to repay over $18,000, 0 cents, the money I had spent supporting her for 2 years after my father passed away. We transferred the entire amount into a savings account under Elijah's name for his future education. Around that time, I also started packing up the house. Our little home in the Maple neighborhood had been the first nest James and I had built together, but after everything, being stalked, uninvited visits from Emily, the curious stares from neighbors, we knew it was time to start over somewhere new. Somewhere Margaret and Emily couldn't haunt us anymore. I changed my phone number, deleted old social media accounts, kept contact only with a few trusted people. James's family, especially his mother, became a greater support than I ever expected. Every week, she would drop by with butter cookies or fresh fruit for Elijah, never mentioning the ordeal. She understood. Peace was the greatest gift, now. As for Emily, after the restraining order took effect, she vanished. But one day, I stumbled upon a post going viral online. It was her wedding photo, captioned, "Finally chose the right family to belong to." In the comments, someone asked, "Where's your mom?" "Didn't see her in any pictures," Emily replied. "I have no association with her unacceptable actions. We've been estranged for a long time." I wasn't surprised. Under pressure from her in-laws, who came from a prominent family, Emily had turned her back on the woman who once did everything to protect her. Margaret lost everything. Not just her reputation, finances, but also the daughter she favored most. Someone sent me a picture of Margaret on the street. More gray hair, a slower gait, a hollow face. I was sweeping leaves in a public park as part of her community. The person asked me, "How do you feel seeing your mother end up like this?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care, but because I had learned something. Sometimes, pitying the wrong person is just another way of hurting yourself. That night, as I rocked Elijah to sleep, I looked at him resting peacefully in my arms and whispered, "You don't need to know what I lost. You just need to know. Everything I do from now on is for you." Outside the window, a light rain began to fall. The raindrops tapped gently on the roof like a farewell to the past. I no longer needed forgiveness from my mother. I didn't expect Emily to wake up either. All I needed was the future, and in that future, I am a mother who protects her child with everything she has. My story isn't just about betrayal by blood relatives. It's about awakening and standing up for what's right. I used to think keeping a promise to my dying father was more important than my own feelings, until I realized being a mother means putting your child first. I lost an incomplete family, only to build a real home. Now I don't live to please anyone. I live to love, nurture, and protect my son with everything I have. What do you think about Lauren's choice? Was she too harsh, or was it the only way to protect her son? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.